I'm just trying to stress to you that in your game plan, let the game come to you, okay? You be a counter puncher. Let's see what their first move is. Let's see what their cards are, okay? Let's see what it is that they tell us to do. And then we analyze, can we do what they're telling us we have to do? And if we can't, let's bring that up and address that with the insurance company. And if they say, well, we're only going to pay to do it this way. We're not going to pay to do these other things. We're not paying for that. We're not paying for that. We're not paying for that. I've had people tell me that, it doesn't work. They push back on that. They don't pay for it. They don't do it. They don't do it. You don't understand, Chad. They don't do that in this area. You don't understand this area. It's not like other places. I hear that all the time. Okay, well, what are they telling you to do? Well, they're telling me to go out and do a repair with this piece of shingle or piece of siding that I can't, the only one I can get doesn't even look the same, but they say that's all they're going to pay for. Okay, great. Let's go do the repair with that piece of shingle and that piece of siding. Let's go do what it is that they prescribe. If they're telling us to do something and reuse damaged flashing, and you put it to them and show them in the code and show them the damaged flashing, and they still disagree, this is all before the build. This is why you have to always present and bring this stuff up before you build. Okay, but just remember, that is the estimate phase. It's all just hypothetical at that point. Emergency. We tried to do it your way, and we can't. Oh my gosh, what are we gonna do? Chad Michael here, coming to you from Dallas, Texas, the city where I live. Just going through Frisco, actually, right where the Star is, just passed by the Star where the Cowboys practice, for all you Cowboys fans out there. December 14th, the dreaded 2020. I just wanted to talk about a subject that I think you'll find useful in just about anything you're doing with insurance restoration for roofing claims, water damage claims, any type of restoration project that you're really working on. I want you to think of one core, foundational, fundamental principle that I say a lot, but it really needs to be the center of everything that you're doing. And if you haven't heard me say it yet, let me start by repeating it. And that is that as an insurance restoration contractor, roofing contractor, water damage restoration contractor, mitigation, reconstruction, your job, okay, the thing that you're hired to do is to perform all of the repairs that are prescribed by the insurance claim, okay, by the insurance company. That's your job. So they write the instruction list, they produce the order, if you will, the prescription, okay, on their approved estimate, and that is the job that you are hired to do. Now, in the very beginning, there may be no estimate available. There may be no approved coverage whatsoever. And your job is to be a part of that process to help to get it to where it becomes, approved coverage. But when it does, and there's an estimate, ultimately, those are the repairs that you're hired to do for that price, okay? So if you can always just remember that, then it'll help you to respond to almost any challenge that any insurance adjuster might throw your way. Okay, now I want to build on that, and this is what more of this video is about, to say that your strategy needs to be letting the game come to you and not the other way around. For all of those chess players out there, this will be easier for you to understand. In chess, your opponent makes a move and then you react, you respond, okay, based on what that move might have been from your opponent, correct? That's what you do. So the person you're playing against makes a move, and you don't really know for sure what your next move is going to be until your opponent makes that move, right? And so I just want you to think of it like that. Like, you don't ever want to make a move with these insurance companies wherever possible until they have made their move first. So for example, there's a lot of folks that say you should go out and meet that first field adjuster at the site and have your Xactimate estimate fully ready and available and hand it to that adjuster as soon as you meet him. Now, I've been doing this now for 20 plus years, 22 years, something like that. And that actually used to be the best strategy to deploy, but it's not anymore. It's definitely not the strategy to deploy here in 2020 going into 2021. It's definitely not the winning strategy that I find. It's quite the opposite. Like, I do want to have that estimate ready and available, the best that I know of, the best that I can imagine that it might be, or the best that I think based on my experience that maybe it should be. I definitely want to have a detailed inspection already completed. Like, I definitely, if it's a house, I want to make sure I've already inspected every room, closet, and hallway, you know, and if it's a dishwasher claim on a two-floor house, two-story house, then I don't necessarily need to go up into the attic and inspect the attic and inspect every room, closet, and hallway in the whole house. No. However, if it's a roof damage claim, hail damage, wind damage, you know, something like that, or hurricane or tornado or fire damage, you know, something a little more extensive, then I'm definitely going to inspect every room, closet, and house. That does include any and all hail damage claims. That does include any and all hail damage claims. So any house, any commercial property, any business is going to include me inspecting every room, closet, and hallway. And if I can get access to the attic, definitely going to do that too. I'm going to inspect the entire roofing system. I'm going to do a drone video in addition to getting on top of it, if I can. I'm going to inspect every inch of every exterior elevation and all unattached structures and any and all contents that I might find throughout that process. Not furniture and things like that on the inside. I'm talking about, you know, hail damage, all the contents like patio furniture, hot tub cover, you know, lighting and all that type of stuff, landscaping lighting. I'm looking at all that too. But I'm inspecting everything, all of that, before that first adjuster comes. I'm photographing everything. I'm documenting everything. I do want to do my code research to find out which building codes come into play for that particular job. I do want to research weather data if it's available. If it's a hail damage claim, I want to find out when there was hail at that property, at that address, or nearby as close as possible, and what size was that hail, and any and all other dates, you know, within the past couple of years that had any hail at that property. I also want to know about wind speeds. especially on a wind damage claim. But just in general, even if it's hail, I want to know about wind speeds. I really want to know anything that I could possibly get my hands on. A complete investigation on any job needs to be conducted. You think of it like a crime, and the inspection is like a crime scene. So every job is like a crime scene that must be investigated. And then any documentation and supporting documentation to go along with that. I do want to have a major advantage over any adjuster, any engineer that they might send out there, any building consultant, maybe even the agent, and the property owner themselves, if at all possible. So I do want to do all that before the adjuster comes, right? I do want to have that advantage, but I do not want to have an estimate that I hand to the adjuster. And a lot of times the adjuster, and maybe even the majority of the time, the adjuster might ask me, hey, do you have an estimate? Okay? And I think the perfect response most of the time to give to an adjuster when they ask you that is actually, Mr. Adjuster, the good news is that I use Xactimate, and I understand that you guys use Xactimate too, so that's good. We use Xactimate too, so we are using the same pricing, same software. We should be able to get on the same page as far as that's concerned. But to answer your question, no, I can't give you an estimate at this time, because my job, sir or ma'am, is to perform all the repairs that are actually prescribed by the claim. And so that's why I'm here, to kind of get your marching orders, if you will, because right now I don't know what repairs are being approved to write an estimate for. You understand that? Let me say that again. Like right now, I don't know what repairs are being approved to be able to write an estimate for, because I was hired to perform all repairs that are prescribed by you. Does that make sense? So that's why I always say that over and over and over again. It'll help you almost in any challenge they try to throw at you. And most objections the proper rebuttal to the objection can be just that. I was hired to perform all repairs that are prescribed by you. If they say, we're not paying for that. Okay, great, but we were hired to perform all the repairs that are prescribed by you, so I'm going to try to do it your way, but just so you know, I don't think that we're going to be able to do that. So, I'm willing to remove that item at this time from the conversation, as long as you're willing to revisit this when it's no longer a hypothetical like it is now in the estimate phase. It's just a hypothetical, okay? As long as you're willing to revisit it when it's no longer in the estimate phase, the hypothetical phase, and when we're there actually swinging hammers and it becomes an actual situation. And I understand that if I had to come back to you at that point, I'd have to bring further documentation and evidence, proof, right? As to back up why it is that it doesn't work. You follow me so far? So you need to find out what it is first that they are going to prescribe. So if you're at that initial meeting with the field adjuster, you need to get sort of on the same page with them about the scope of repairs. The scope. The scope is not an estimate with dollar signs next to it. The scope is just the items that need to be performed, if you will. So if you think of it in terms of an Xactimate estimate, if you are familiar with Xactimate, then the scope report is something you can generate instead of the estimate that comes out with the line items and the dollar figures. The scope report would come out with just the line items and no dollar figures at all. Pro tip, that could come in useful for situations where you want somebody to know what repairs need to be performed, but you don't want them to know how much it's going to cost, or you don't want them to know how much you're being paid, or you don't want to know, maybe your staff, internal, the crew, things like that. That scope report can be helpful for that. Or maybe you want to make a move with the insurance company that you're trying to get them to realize the scope that's involved, but you don't want to talk price. There might be a reason to do that also, but not at the first meeting. The first meeting is let's do the inspection together, Mr. Adjuster or Miss Adjuster. Let's do the walkthrough together, and literally drag them. You know, I try to be non-intimidating, and I try to be professional, humble, you know, cooperative, all those things, diplomatic. So I'm not like there to jam anything down their throats. Instead, in the beginning, when they're sort of, you can feel that tension where it seems like they're a little bit intimidated by you being there, or maybe they're frustrated or annoyed that you're there. I like to say, hey, don't worry about me. I'm just here because I was the contractor that's been hired to perform all repairs that are prescribed by you. So I'm actually just here to find out what it is that that you say, what you say goes, right? Like, I'm here to get my marching orders from you, my instruction list from you. I'm here to find out what it is that you're going to approve so that I know what it is that I need to perform. Makes sense? So, and let me stay out of your way. Like, I'm not here to tell you how to do your job. See, when you go there with an estimate and jam it into their hands, that comes across that way, even subconsciously, to the adjuster. So it's different. You're there to make them the leader, the expert, right? That you feel like they feel like you're deferring to them to make all the determinations. And speaking of that, I will use that quite a bit when it comes up to situations where I know it might be extensive or complex. I'll point it out to them like, oh, hey, Mr. Adjuster, what do you think about this? I noticed this. And then, what do you think we should do about this? Like, how should we solve this? And, in your opinion. So it's like you're constantly deferring to them. Now, when you do that, though, and the adjuster comes back with, oh, no, what do you need to do with that? You just spot paint it, like if it's a spot on the ceiling. Then you can come back with, oh, well, actually, we can't do that. We can't just leave it wet, like the insulation that's above it beyond the other side. Actually, Mr. Adjuster, what we typically do on something like that is we would cut out that wet piece of drywall. We would remove the wet piece of insulation above it. We would spray it with antimicrobial agent. We would replace, with insulation. With new insulation, we would replace the little piece of drywall there. We'd match the texture. We'd paint the ceiling, detach, reset everything, mask cover, contents, move out, then reset. That might be a good time to bring that up. Like, you're not jamming an estimate into their hands, but you're bringing it up. Or it might be a building code issue. Well, actually, Mr. Adjuster, the flashing is damaged. Are you aware of the code in this area? You're not? Well, let me help you. See, like, you can actually be helpful. You could bring up the code and show them which code even comes into play, because they probably don't even know that information. And you can show and maybe educate them after you've learned some, how to understand these just the basics of these building codes and how they come into play for insurance claims. And if you haven't been following me long, if you're just seeing this video, seeing me for the first time, then I'll put something here, because you need to go and look on and see everything that I have to say about building codes, or get into my IEScertified.com training course so that you can learn, because in there, after you take that course, you'll know everything you need to know about building codes for insurance claims. You need to do that. You also, if you need to hire me for consulting, quick little plug, insurancerestorationtraining.com. I consult people privately, remotely. I do on-site job inspections. Some consulting includes that also, anywhere in the country. So if you think you have a job or multiple jobs that you need my help with, I'll help you. I'll help you understand these things. Most of my consulting clients, I include access and membership to the IEScertified.com training course. Why would I do that? Because they need to have it. I believe in it that much. Everybody tells me the same thing. Nobody's ever come back and said, oh, it's just, it doesn't work. It's not good stuff. It's revolutionary. The building codes are revolutionary to help give you the advantage with adjusters. So that's a little side note there. But once you've gone through that process to where that light bulb goes off for you, like it did for me once upon a time, because before it was like a Japanese language to me. I couldn't understand it at all. I had to go through this process, and it was not nearly as hard as I thought it would be. But I didn't like it. That's why I had to do it, or that's why I hated it. And I had to, a light bulb had to go off. And when it did, I realized this is not that hard at all. I had this stuff all twisted. But the thing is that if you're all twisted on this too, realize that most other contractors are also, and almost all adjusters, insurance adjusters, are absolutely twisted up about building codes. Most of them, with rare and few exceptions, most of them don't know anything about building codes. That gives you the advantage. So when you bring up codes as, for example, all flashing, not just some flashing, but all flashing, and by the way, all flashing, outlets, vents, and similar devices that are a part of the roof assembly shall be replaced, right? They shall be replaced where rusted, damaged, or deteriorated, okay? So that's, you think of damage, well, it's going to be damaged when it's torn off. Yeah, it is, but there's another way. Rusted, you know about that. Deteriorated, you know about that. But damaged, it already is damaged, because how was it installed? It was installed with nails. It was installed with something. It has holes in it, right? It already is damaged, but you must document that, okay? Now, when you bring that to the attention of the adjuster, the first response you need to be expecting from them is, oh, what's wrong with the flashing? It's not damaged, okay? And they're thinking damage, it has to be damaged by hail, like if you're on a hail claim, or wind, if you're on a wind claim. They're thinking, why would you have to include the flashing? Because it's not damaged by hail. Well, let's look at the building code again. The building code says nothing about hail or wind or anything like that. So that does not fly. And so if you understand these things, expect that the adjuster doesn't understand it at all. But you can help them understand it. So you can be a part of educating the adjuster, not in a condescending manner, but in a helpful way, like, oh yeah, this is great, like I went through this too, let me help you. And point him to the codes that come into play for that particular job, okay? And expect them to push back. They might say, oh, well, they're not gonna approve that. They're not gonna pay for that. Okay, at least you tried. That's my thing. With the field adjuster, I'm just gonna go out and try. I'm going to eliminate all the options. Like, I'm going to check all the boxes. I'm going to do everything in my power that I can to get it bought. Okay, so a lot of times I can get so many amazing results with the field adjuster, believe it or not, because you can get them to go. I'm trying to get them to go as far as I can. Okay, and then when they won't go any further, even though I disagree, then I'll politely disagree. But again, it's then, okay, well, we'll try to do it that way. Like, go ahead, write it up that way. Because I think what I'm hearing you say, Mr. Adjuster, is that if you did write it up that way and you submitted it on to your superiors, and try to have that, check go out with that, then they would kick it back down because they wouldn't approve it then. They wouldn't approve that. Is that what I'm hearing? And they're always like, oh yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. Like, you're kind of giving them a way out of that little standoff, if you will. And you're giving them a way to kind of blame it on something else. And then I'm like, okay, well, listen, don't put it in the estimate, because if you're saying you think it's going to get kicked back out, kicked back down, that's the last thing that I would want you to do, is to put it in the estimate, because that's going to hold all of us up, right? And that's actually true. That would hold everything up if that did happen. And so I want them to pay as much as they're willing to pay based on everything that they see. And by the way, everything that I show them, I want them to document it. I want them to write it down and put on there, or I want them to take photographs of it and put some kind of documentation of it, if at all possible, so that it's included in the original adjuster's batch of photographs, so that later on, when I'm addressing that with maybe a desk adjuster, then they can go back and they can actually see what it is that I'm referring to. Most of these things are based on one adjuster's human opinion, okay? So if one adjuster feels a certain way, it doesn't mean that a totally different adjuster is going to see it the same exact way that the first adjuster did, okay? So that's just, one thing I want to do. I want to show it to them, push them as far as I can get them to go, and then let them off the hook. But it's always, remember, a lot of times, most of the time, when they're done with their little process of paying out the check, it's, hey, I'm all done. I sent you over an estimate. Take a look at the estimate, and if you're good with the estimate, let me know so I can send out the check. And it's always, well, hey, I'll tell you what, I can't agree to anything, okay? Like, we have to run that through and vet it and run it through our estimating staff and management, and that might actually take us a little bit of time, but we're going to move forward with the project. So go ahead and send the money. Go ahead and send the money, because we're moving forward with the project. We're going to go ahead, we're going to get started, and if anything comes up, we'll let you know, okay? Anything comes up, we'll let you know. Fair enough? And it's always like, the adjuster, yeah, fair enough. A lot of times it kind of dawns on them like, man, this guy just like gave me a way out of this thing. And then to them, the claim is closed, okay? Payment goes out, and guess what else? Most of the time, depending on how their structure is where they work, that means the adjuster gets paid, or they get credit that goes towards year-end bonuses and things like that. So, it's a good thing for everybody. That's why when you call in on claims that have already been paid out that first ACV check, and you try to get it, a supplement going, they're like, well, that claim's closed. Okay, great. Open it back up. All right, because I have a supplement. We all know what a supplement is. Okay, so that's the nature of this video is I'm just trying to stress to you that in your game plan, let the game come to you, okay? You be a counter puncher. Let's see what their first move is. Let's see what their cards are, okay? Let's see what it is that they tell us to do. And then we analyze, can we do what they're telling us we have to do? And if we can't, let's bring that up and address that with the insurance company. You follow me? So if they say, well, we're only going to pay to do it this way. We're not going to pay to do these other things. We're not paying for that. We're not paying for that. We're not paying for that. And through all of the presenting of documentation that you try to do, like you're trying to show them why they need to pay for it, you show them why all these other line items are in fact necessary, but it doesn't work. I've had people tell me that, it doesn't work. They push back on that. They don't pay for it. They don't do it. They don't do it. You don't understand, Chad. They don't do that in this area. You don't understand this area. It's not like other places. I hear that all the time. You don't understand. They just don't pay. They push back. Okay, well, what are they telling you to do? Well, they're telling me to go out and do a repair with this piece of shingle or piece of siding that I can't, the only one I can get doesn't even look the same, but they say that's all they're going to pay for. Okay, great. Let's go do the repair with that piece of shingle and that piece of siding. Let's go do what it is that they prescribe. If they're telling us to do something and reuse damaged flashing, and you put it to them and show them in the code and show them the damaged flashing, and they still disagree, this is all before the build. This is why you have to always present and bring this stuff up before you build, okay? But just remember, that is the estimate phase. It's all just hypothetical at that point. But you bring it up and document it, hash it out, have your fight before the build, okay? Let them say, no, we can't do it that way. You can reuse that flashing. Okay, great. We're going to try to do it your way. All right, I don't think we can do that, but we're going to try to do it your way. And if you can, literally, and especially on more important and severe issues, if at all possible, depending where you're at, if you can get the cooperation of the building department, a lot of times, depending on where you're at, building department doesn't understand the building codes that are in the IRC and IBC and IECC. You may have to educate them. But where they do know it, especially in places where they have inspections and things like that, like down in Florida, where they do know it, can you get the building department to come in and shut you down? Like, shut your own site down, red tag your own site? Can you do that? Does the situation call for that? Is it that severe? But if you did that and you went forward and tried to do it their way, but the building department literally said you can't do it and they shut your job down, what kind of power would that give you with the insurance company? Would that give you some leverage now to get them to see things your way? Like they tell you, no, we're not going to replace the decking, based on 3 different codes, by the way. Solidly sheathed decks, right? Must be a solidly sheathed deck. We don't pay for rot. Yeah, but you pay for solidly sheathed decks if you have OL coverage, ordinance and law coverage, building code compliance coverage, right? So the code says solidly sheathed decks. Doesn't say rot, warp, all those things they'd have to pay for. So, if it's not stable, if it's not sturdy, that's one code. The water-soaked decking, that's another one. Water-saturated underlayment, that's a third one. And all those reasons, they say they're not going to pay for it. Okay, great. Well, we're going to try to do it your way. I don't think we can. And then go out there, rip off the shingles, and shut the site down. Contact them. Emergency! We tried to do it your way, and we can't. Oh my gosh, what are we going to do? That's what I would do. I would go out and shut myself down, right? So, anyway, that's all I got for today. Just pulling up at the crib, pulling up at the house here. I got more stuff I got to do, and that was on my mind. I'm thinking about, the game plan, letting the game come to you. You can do this. Keep grinding. Much love to y'all. I love you. Peace.